lot in there which we can unpick in a bit, but I've got Angela Rayner, the Deputy Labour leader, with me, so let's go straight to her and see what she thought of the speech. Angela Rayner, it seems to me that this is a Labour Party that now finally believe that you're going to win the next general election.
Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant to hear Keir so powerfully talk about how his passion and his own life story has informed why he believes, that core investment in Britain, in our companies, in the future of our economy, in a really strong way that is going to, really power us, not just for this generation, but giving hope for our children, which is what we want to see. I thought it was incredibly inspirational.
Angela Rayner, though, it's fair to say, isn't it, that part of Labour's success in the polls, certainly at the moment, is due to some of the missteps that the public believe that the Conservatives are taking. Isn't it rather that they're unhappy with the Tories than they like you?
Well, I think before this, obviously, I do think that people have seen that what the Conservatives have done in the last 12 years, certainly the last week, it's got even worse. And what we've set out today, and I think what Keir has clearly shown, is that we've got a long-term plan for the future of this country that is going to benefit people today, but also give our children hope for the future and build our companies, enterprises, partnership with business. These are really great ideas that are going to propel us into the future on the global stage.
All right, let me put it another way. Is it fair to say that the public are now looking again at Labour, but they still don't necessarily love Labour?
Yeah, sure. I think, nobody is complacent here. We all know that in 2019 we got a real kick in. The public didn't see us as the future, but now they're seeing what the Conservatives have done. They're tired, worn out, and they've damaged our economy, and they've damaged our outlook internationally. Now they're seeing a Labour Party that understands where we went wrong and has got a future plan that is not going to just help today, but help us into the future.
I've got two more questions. Sorry, Angela. I've got two more questions. One, the Labour leader stood on that platform and said, we are the party of the centre ground. Now, you obviously have historically been associated with the left of the party. That must sting a bit. He's a bit too much Tony Blair. The centre ground, the party of business, the party of aspiration. That's not your politics.
No, what Keir's saying is we're the party that's going to govern for the people of this country, and that's absolutely right. Look, we can't be in little factions in the Labour Party. We're a party of government. We're waiting to get into government now so we can change the lives of the British people. And I think that was absolutely right that Keir made that point today.
It doesn't bother you when he says we're the party of the centre ground?
No, we're the party that's going to win. We're the party of government. That was the point that Keir was making, is that actually we're the party for the British people. We're the centre ground of British politics. We're the people that are going to get into power, act responsibly and invest in the future.
Just finally about Sir Keir Starmer. He has been criticised, hasn't he, for being a bit boring, for not connecting with the public. Do you think we're beginning to see a different type of leader? Do you think he's changing? You see him up close.
I think it was great that you saw what I see. I've said in many interviews, if only they could see the Keir Starmer that I see, the passion, the way he talks about his upbringing, the way he talks about his family and how he's so passionate to ensure that people of Britain, the companies of Britain, the business, the economy, that it will grow together to be something that we can be really proud of again. And I think people saw in Keir today what I see all the time, and that's a man that's dedicated to public duty and wants to see Britain prosper, and everybody, nobody left behind. A country that is, tackling inequality and giving everybody opportunity and aspiration.
So less lawyer, a bit more of a politician these days?
I thought that was fantastic. I think people have seen the Keir that I see every single day, and
have you given him lessons? Give me lessons.
I think the public will like it. I think he's exactly what we need in this country at the moment. Someone that's got very clear ideas, very good principles and values and ethics about making sure that we all put our, shoulder to the wheel and make sure that we push forward as Britain again.
Final question. What's your message today to Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng?
Do not completely trash our country before we take over and make it better.
Fighting talk there. Thank you, Angela Rayner. Thank you so much. So, SJ, sorry, I'm now in the I'm in the crunch. So let's move slightly out. Well, there you have. Angela Rayner there, reflecting really that sense of growing belief within the Labour Party that what a year, 2 years ago felt impossible really, now a distinct possibility for them, that they feel that they are potentially in touching distance of actually winning the next general election. And you can see what's happened in terms of Boris Johnson and his political difficulties leading to his forced resignation, the arrival of Liz Truss, the economic shift in policy, what's happened now to the economy, that 17-point lead in that poll, the biggest for 2 decades, not seen since the days of Tony Blair. And Keir Starmer, who was being heckled in this hall a year ago by the Labour left, there on stage channeling Tony Blair, using lines from Tony Blair's speech to put the party firmly in the central ground, a message to the public that Labour can be trusted on business, on the economy, positioning himself as a sober leader. I think the big question, the unknown in all of this, and that's what I put to Angela Rayner, is that are Labour winning because the Tories are having such a torrid time? And if the Tories can get back into control, can begin to convince the public of their economic plans, if their economic plans indeed do begin to grow the economy, what does Labour do then? So certainly here there's no complacency, and there is a fear, if you like, that this poll lead could well get closed over the next 2 years. There is a long time to the next general election.
Yeah, Beth, Sir Keir Starmer going in hard on the economy, as you would expect, given what's happened since last Friday's mini-budget. He talked about reducing debt, building a sound economy, fully costed policies and setting up an office for value for money. But can we just talk about that big policy announcement that he made regarding the new company he wants to set up within the first year of a Labour government?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting announcement that he made, a big economic move, actually. What Labour are announcing is that they are going to create a new energy company, basically to invest in renewables. It's going to be called GB Energy, Great Britain Energy. It's going to be funded, seed funding from this sovereign national wealth fund they've talked about, 8.2 billion earmarked for that. That money, some of that, they wouldn't say how much it will be yet, will be put into a new energy company owned by taxpayers to invest in the next generation of energy companies. And why are they doing it? Well, the Labour figures that were talking to us about that policy say back in the 1980s, when oil and gas was discovered in the North Sea, it was owned by private companies, and then the wealth from that, yes, it got paid in taxes to the government, and that paid for tax cuts under Margaret Thatcher. But what Labour is saying is we want the British people to take the dividends. So they have got a very interesting new policy. It's their answer, if you like, to Liz Truss's energy security policy, where she says that they want to issue more licences for oil and gas, fracking, more nuclear, more renewables, in order to make the UK energy sufficient and an energy exporter by 2040. Labour is saying, well, this is our answer. We don't want to do fossil fuels. We want to do renewables. And their commitment is to make us a net exporter of energy by 2030. So it's a Greens arm race, if you like, between the two competitors. But that was his big pitch on the economy. And you heard what he said there. We are believers in business and we want to work with business. Again, you'll remember Tony Blair and the prawn cocktail offensive, where he went around the city to try and reassure the markets, investors, that Labour governments could be trusted on the economy. That was Keir Starmer's big pitch today, because he thinks that because of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng's decision on the economy, they have left an open goal there, where the decades-held position by the Conservative Party as the party of economic competence is now in jeopardy, and Keir Starmer wants to seize that ground.
Beth, I know you're going to be talking to other Labour MPs there at the party to get their reaction to what we've heard. But if I could just ask you another question about the realistic note that Sir Keir Starmer struck during his speech. And the Deputy Leader, Angela Rayner, has struck it there when she said her message to Liz Truss was, don't trash the country before we get a chance to fix it. Sir Keir Starmer saying, I'd love to say that Labour will fix everything, but the damage that the Tories have done means this time the rescue will be harder than ever. That's the tone, the overall tone of that speech.
I think what Keir Starmer was trying to do in that speech was put clear blue water between Labour and the Conservatives, and he did that in a way where he set out his agenda, but he didn't make very, very pointed political attacks on the Conservatives, what I think he really was trying to do was present himself as a leader in waiting, almost above the fray. I think the attempt by Keir Starmer is to present himself in a world of increasing economic and political turmoil as a steady pair of hands, as a safe pair of hands on the steering wheel. And part of doing that is to not make really pointed political attacks at your opponents. But there's no doubt that if the economic strategy that the Conservatives are pursuing doesn't give the growth that they're hoping, and we should say that their strategy is you cut taxes, you increase borrowing, you give stimulus to the economy, and that pulls you out of recession, that gives you growth. That's their aim. We're seeing in the market turmoil the fears about the knock-on effect for inflation, because it causes inflationary pressure, the knock-on effect of what that means on interest rates. If investors lose confidence in government debt, that means that the yields go up, so the cost of government borrowing goes up. That means that the Bank of England, it's responsible for monetary policy, the government don't have a say in that. They have to put up interest rates. So it is very febrile at the moment. It's unclear how it will play out. And so when you look at the economy on a 2, 4, 5, 10-year plan or situation, it's quite hard to read where it will go now. I should say, though, the government have said that they will put out economic forecasts from the Office of Budget Responsibility. They're independent on November the 23rd, and they will set out a medium-term fiscal plan in an attempt to reassure the government, the borrowers over the government's long-term plan over debt and the sustainability of their tax and spend plans. Some people are suggesting that they might have to bring that forward. We simply don't know. We have to wait and see.